Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. I am back with the president of the Blue Collar Investor Corp himself, Dr. Ellman, with a great segment today. Dr. Ellman, how are you doing?
Doing terrific, Howard. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Markets, and transparency to everybody. Today is the day that all of the deep seek news has been hitting, and the markets are a little bit in turmoil. So I do really appreciate, with all the volatility of the market today, that you spared some time for us, Dr. Ellman. And you're going into a subject that I asked you to go over because I saw it within your blogs, and it's something that I've seen a lot of talk about on mainstream media and also on the financial sort of news networks, talking about where does option premium money go, and is trading in options truly a net zero gain? And this is going to break it down. So I love it.
Yeah, a lot of times investors in options will sell an option because I'm on the sell side of options with covered call writing and cash secured puts. And they'll sell an option, then they'll go into their brokerage account and they'll go, wait a minute, I just sold an option. Where's the money? It's not reflected in my account balance. I thought it would go up. As a matter of fact, sometimes it goes down. How could that
Right.
possibly be? And yet they take a look. The trade was in fact executed. Where's the money? So our discussion today will show various brokerage accounting formulas and where that money actually is. So we sell a covered call or cash secured put. Now that money we know is in our cash account and we can actually use it. A lot of times if I'm selling 100, 125 option contracts per month, I'll take that revenue and buy more shares and sell more contracts. So I'll compound my money instantly. The money's there. But when
Right.
you take a look at your account balance, it's not there. It's confusing to a lot of retail investors. So how come the account didn't go up? Maybe it even went down.
Yeah,
Where did it go?
I was not nicely surprised by this a few times in the past. That's why I think it is such a great subject for our viewers to learn a little bit about, because it is not as intuitive as one would think sometimes.
Yes, and that's why we're going to talk about unearned income or revenue because that I'll first start with something that a general example that everybody is familiar with, right? Unearned income is income that has an attached liability. For example, most of us have purchased airline tickets. I travel all the time, all over the country to do my speaking commitments. So about 2 months before my commitment, I'll go online and I'll purchase an airline ticket. Now, the airline receives that income, but it's not earned income because they haven't provided what they have to provide to me, which is the airline trip.
The
So
service.
therefore, it is unearned income. So they have to have some kind of brokerage accounting to discern between income that has in fact been earned once I take the flight versus that is currently unearned because I haven't yet taken that flight. So that income then is unearned until the event actually takes place. So that's a general example. We could bring
That's
it
a
into
great example that I hadn't thought about, but that's exactly right. The fact is, when someone sells you something that you're going to use in the future for an event, a ticket to a game, those are great. That is a great way. I'm putting that on my notes here. A great way to explain that to someone who's having trouble understanding what that means.
Yeah. So, if we could bring it into the wonderful world of option selling, which is where I reside. When we sell an option, the airline ticket, so we're selling the option, the airline's selling the ticket, we now have an attached obligation, our contractual obligation to either buy or sell 100 shares of that underlying security, depending on if we're selling calls or puts. So that is our attached liability. So until that liability ceases, that income that we do in fact receive is considered unearned income, and the brokerages will account for it in a different way than it will once that commitment ends. So there are three ways, Howard, that commitment can cease. Number one, we could buy back the call. We can close the call. You sell a covered call and buy it back. Now, I do that all the time.
Right.
Consider rolling the option. I may want to roll the option out to the next contract cycle. I may want to roll it up or down, or I may just close it and wait and see if the price of the stock rebounds, and then sell the same option again in the same contract cycle. I call that hitting a double, two income streams in the same contract cycle. But I do that by buying back or closing the option. So that's one way the contract commitment will cease. Another way is if the option is in fact exercised, and
Right.
the sell side of options. So if we sell a call, we have to sell our shares. If we sell a put, we have to buy the shares. And at that point in time, our contract commitment ceases. And then the broker can show the option, the final realized option credit or debit at that point in time. And the third way is that if the option expires out of the money with no intrinsic value and therefore expires worthless. So those are the three ways that the contract commitment can cease, and then it will be reflected differently than when you first initiate the trade and wonder, where the heck did my money go?
Right. Absolutely.
Hey, Howard, before you move on,
Yep.
If I could just throw something else out there that's a little bit outside of what we're discussing today.
Sure.
Looking at those three ways of ceasing the contract, there is a myth out there about options that you may have heard of that says 90% of options expire worthless. And that is inaccurate, but it's amazing how many times you read that over and over again on the internet. 90% of options expire worthless. That is not true. What is true is that 10% of options, and these are approximations, Howard.
Right.
10% of options are in fact exercised. But of that remaining 90%, 55% are closed. Like I was talking about before. I'll buy back the option, maybe roll it, maybe sell the stock or whatever. But 55% approximately are closed, leaving only 35% that expire worthless. So while I was on that
it is a great point, because you hear that all the time, bandied about, and it isn't correct. It's about that exercise that we've talked about here, that, as you've said, doesn't happen nearly as much as you think, because most people just sell the actual option before exercise.
Right. Most option buyers don't want to be share owners or share sell. They want to be directionally correct and leverage that option to generate a lot of income. And when you just naked options, you have the opportunity to generate a lot of income if you're directionally correct. Of course, you have to overcome the premium you pay, and then you have to overcome theta, time value erosion. But if you could do that, you have an opportunity. But of course, there's greater risk with naked options than when you're on the sell side.
Absolutely. That's something I learned the hard way also, of holding some options that were very well in the money at one point, and then watching theta and the others, and a little bit price move the wrong way can get you. So that is why a lot of traders do that and don't hold till exercise.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a high personal risk tolerance and your goal is to make a greater return quicker, then naked options could be for you. But if you're more conservative, like I am, you have a low personal risk tolerance, then you might want to consider being on the sell side with these low risk strategies.
Right. Absolutely.
So when we're looking at the broker accounting process, the cash when we sell an option is in fact in our cash accounts. And I said before, available for trading. I do this all the time because I'm selling a lot of contracts every week, every month, and I'm compounding that money right away. But when tabulating our actual account value, until our contractual obligation ceases, the broker will factor in the debit that it will cost us to buy back that option. That
Right.
will be reflected in the total value of our brokerage account. So the moment we sell the option, let's say I use $2. We sell an option for $2 a share. Well, we sell at the bid. If we were to buy it back, we buy it back at the ask. The ask is higher than the bid. So let's say the bid price was $2, 200 per contract. It may cost us 210 to buy back that option. So at that point in time, when we sell the option, we go to our account value. It could be down $10 per contract.
Yep.
And you're expecting it to be up, by $2 a contract,
Yeah.
200 per contract. So that's I get these panic emails all the time.
I'm
Something
sure.
went wrong. I did something wrong. How did this happen? On and on and on. I got to calm them down and explain to
Yeah.
them what we're talking about today.
Exactly what Big Beat had to do with me. Steve got that panic call one day. Steve, you told me we made money. What's going on? This account is down. I don't know. What did I do wrong? It was more of a panic of what did I do wrong? Did I buy when I was selling and selling when I was buying? And he quickly said, hey, look at your cash amount versus the account balance.
Right. And you know what? I could think back to the mid 1990s when I started teaching myself these strategies and panicking myself.
Yeah, well, it does. I mean, I think every trader has that same fear. Did I enter the wrong trade? Did I not look at my numbers correctly? And did I fat finger it, as we call it in the crypto world, something there? I did that once. I once sold a crypto at 16 cents a share when I meant to sell it at $16. So I am very good at making sure I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, last year I published my 9th book, and during the trading year of 2022, I used this blueprint for streamlined approach to covered call writing. And what I did was I took a screenshot of every single trade that I made, the initial trade, any trade management techniques that I used, the end of the month results, compared it to the S&P 500, and I took a screenshot of every single trade that I made. And I was very careful through the year because I knew that if things worked out the way I expected them to, that I would be publishing a book, which I ended up doing. And I was so careful. But you know what? There were 2 or 3 times during that year when I did enter a wrong trade. For example, I may have bought 400 shares when I should have bought 300 shares, something like that. And I'm saying to myself, boy, I'll tell you, I've been doing this for so long, and I'm being so careful because I knew there was a good chance it was going to be a published book, and yet I still, over the year, made a couple of mistakes. So no matter how seasoned you are, if you're human, there are going to be some mistakes.
Yeah, without a doubt. And, like you said, what you have to be wary of is that as we become veteran traders, we tend to stop looking at them as closely because, like you said, you make hundreds of them a week and you think, I got this down. I annoy people because I sit there and I pull my finger out and I'm looking through everything because I've just done it. Once you make that mistake once or twice in the wrong way, especially in crypto where that order gets picked up instantly and you just lost, $15 a share, it gets you quickly.
Well, that Howard is, I think the way I got good at this is by making mistakes.
Yeah.
And whenever I lost money in a trade, I would always go back over and over again and say, how could I have avoided those losses or even mitigated those losses? Or even when I had a nice gain, is there a way that I could have made even more money with that trade? And I would analyze it. And so I always tell people, if you make a mistake, it's not the worst thing in the world. Don't kick yourself, because just review what you did wrong and make sure it never happens again. And then you'll have years and decades of never, ever making that mistake again. So it can actually become something very valuable and positive in your investment lifetime.
Absolutely. And changes habits. What I learned from me was the one that I would constantly be correcting. Luckily, before I sent it, was either buy to open or sell to open. It was automatically selecting one. And I wasn't the first thing you should, for me, and the app that I use is select the right one. I'd start looking at numbers and do stuff and not look to see if it was on the seller or the buy. So now the first thing I do is I hit that. So you learn hopefully from your mistakes. That's the key.
Most brokerages, before they'll execute the trade, after you enter everything, they'll give you an opportunity to review the trade.
Yeah.
I say to your viewers, and I'm sure you haven't also, do it.
I do. And you know what? I actually like Robinhood, which to me is, probably the worst interface of some of the interfaces. They actually ask you, are you expecting to get a credit or to pay a debit?
Oh, interesting.
And I like that component too, because, it gets you in the right page. So because they've had so many problems, and it shows you how many people have had these issues, that platforms have gone out of their way to make it a little bit more easy to review or make you review things.
So, Howard, right now there's a screenshot. I don't know how easy it is to read for your viewers, but I could just kind of summarize it. I did highlight it in colors. So the stock positions are highlighted in yellow, and you'll see those also show positive numbers as far as account value is concerned. Now, all the way to the right, the yellow reflects the gain. It just so happens that this was taken from one of my brokerage accounts. They were all positive, so that means the shares went up since I purchased them, but they could have gone down, but they show positive values as far as that total portfolio value. Now, in the brown highlighted cells, those are the options, and you could see that they're reflected with a negative amount. Sometimes in some brokerages, they just bracket it in red, which means the negative value. And that will reflect the cost to buy back or close that option. So the cash is in your cash account, like Big B told you, check your cash account. All right. But as far as the broker is concerned, it's still a negative value until your contractual obligation ceases. So you see all the negatives in the brown cells for the options, and you see all the positives in the yellow cells for the actual underlying securities.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, it was confusing for me at first. And then what I guess we should also tell them is what it is your brokerage is giving you margin, whether you realize or not they are, in theory. And part of that goes to the settlement was T+2, now down to T+1. And the way that your account works, you are being issued a margin, even though you might not realize that you are.
Yeah, I mean, you could. I do this all the time. You could use that money right away. I mean,
yeah, I do too. I always, in my view, you almost always should.
Yeah, I mean,
as long as again, we've talked about not every day is a day to trade and so forth, but outside of that, I always take advantage of
it. A day like today, if you had we have talked about the 20%, 10% guidelines several times in our discussions. And a day like today, when the market goes down significantly, a lot of those triggers are going to be reached, and automatically those thresholds will trigger the buy back the option, whether it's a monthly 20% or a weekly 10%. Well, now you simply own those underlying shares, and you're free to resell the option if it goes back up, or roll down the option. Or sell the stock if the stock is dramatically underperforming. I wouldn't have a knee-jerk reaction. But again, if those thresholds are reached and you no longer have that option obligation, a day like today can actually turn out to be a good thing, because it gives you the opportunity then to generate another income stream if, in fact, the market starts to recover, which I think there's a good chance that it will.
Yeah, I'm a buy the dip guy today. I am waiting until we're done today. I wanted to see things go. I did, like I said, cost average down a little bit on NVIDIA. Yeah, I don't buy the news out of China that big. I think that, this was more of, I heard it said nicely. I think it was Bloomberg this morning. This is sort of the AI Sputnik moment where
Oh,
the US is being put on notice that we're not the only ones in this race to the, in that days, it was the race to the moon. In this case, it's a race to AI supremacy. And, it's a long way from over, and it isn't, it isn't all done. That's all I would say.
well, if trading for 30 years in the market uh, has taught me not to have a dramatic knee-jerk reaction when the market moves way down like today. It's already started to recover before we started talking, um, or goes way up. Either way, I don't react dramatically. I take a deep breath,
Absolutely. When
let
we're
it
done
shake
today,
out.
I get on with our trading mindset coach, Agnieszka Woods, and as she said, it's okay to react. You don't want to respond all the time. In other words, let your body get to your emotions are going to kick off. There's not much we can do sometimes after like you said, after 30 years, you might be able to calm your nerves on a day like today. But for those of us that have only been in for a few years, all these inputs coming in, you get a little nervous. Take all that in and let it digest before you actually make that reaction with your finger sometimes.
You said a very important word, Howard. You said the word emotion.
Yeah.
Now, I think the best traders, investors are the ones that learn how to take emotion out of the equation.
Without a doubt. I always tell people if they're a good poker player, they're going to be a good trader.
Oh,
If you're, I feel a lot of the same principles come into play. And that those folks that have that ability to stay calm when there's money on the table. Yeah, and you've probably been in that case. I don't know if you're a golfer. We never talked about it. I love to golf. And there are some people I can play with that are friends of mine that I know if I say even $1, hey, $1 if you make that putt, that they're going to miss a 2-footer. It doesn't matter. They can't handle the pressure. So those are the people I tell don't trade in the market. They're the ones that do need brokers.
yeah, no, I don't. I don't play golf and I don't play cards for money, but I know people who do, and I know exactly what you're talking about. If there's a pot for $5, which makes no difference to any of these guys, I
Yeah.
mean they're going to play like that their life depends on it.
Yeah.
So if you can develop a system of investing and trading where you have confidence in that system and you stick with it, that doesn't mean you can't tweak it if you find a way of improving it. But if you stick with that system, that means that you've already in your mind know what you're going to do if the market goes way down, way up, or just kind of consolidates. You know exactly what you're going to do because it's part of your system. It's almost automated.
And I
And
do want to point out for our viewers, that's what's so great about the blue collar investor is that all of this has already been done over 30 years. Dr. Ellman doesn't just rest on his laurels. He doesn't look at a trade that made 7% in a, let's say, 30-day period and say, well, that was a home run, nothing to look at here. He looks at his trades, he analyzes them like he spoke about a little bit earlier, looks at what maybe he could have done differently, maybe how he didn't read something or what could have been an option, looking back that could have maximized profits or minimized losses. And that's what's so great about your system.
yeah, I mean, I think pretty much over the last 30 years, anything that could happen has happened already.
Yeah.
Um, if if something new comes up, believe me, I'll deal with it. I'll analyze it, and I'll come up with some kind of rule, guideline, formula, algorithm, whatever to deal with it. But again, over the last 30 years, trading 100 to 125 contracts every month, um, probably most of what could happen has already happened.
You've seen it all, so to speak.
Yeah. So just to kind of summarize, Howard, when we sell an option, the cash is in fact in our cash account, but will not be reflected in our total portfolio value because it's unearned income until that contract obligation ceases to exist. Now, the cost to close values, the value of our portfolio, factoring in the cost to close, that number will change as the value of the option premiums change. So it won't be the same on day 1 as it is on day 4 and day 6. That number will keep changing. But what you need to know is that when the contract obligation ceases, that your final option credit most of the time could be a debit if you buy it back at a higher price. Most of the time it'll be a credit, will then be reflected at that point in time when the
At the
contract
end of the
ceases
trade.
to exist. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's, we're trying to get through some of the little hiccups that I've run through over the years, or other traders that I know have had, those we're trying to take away those oh no moments here at Quasar Markets. And that's one of them that I know a lot of people had, that I definitely went and, just couldn't figure out for the longest time. So I really thank you for putting that into terms. And I never heard that airline one, which is a great analogy to use to further understand it. Because I knew that it showed in my cash and it didn't show necessarily in my overall account, but I didn't understand sort of a good way to explain it. So I really want to thank you, because it gives me a good, way to explain it to younger traders, and not necessarily younger, but newer traders.
Well, you picked a good topic, Howard, because I would say a very large percentage of new options traders experience this. And so it was a good topic to select, and I thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ellman. Like always, this will be showing all week here on Quasar Markets. February is going to be full of the blue collar investor. We're going to have every day, Monday through Friday. We're at a point where we can fill the entire month, actually, with the shows that we've done already over the last few months. So I'm going to do it every day at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You will be able to see Dr. Ellman and myself and go over all of the videos that we've done, so that by the beginning of March, we'll have you ready to start making some covered call positions.
Sounds great. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.